subways, street operations. There was a decision made, something called environmental document. Most people are sophisticated to deal with that. There was a decision that said there will be no gates anywhere except at the baggage luggage area at Union Station. So this is a street operation with a 1.7 miles, 1.8 miles an hour. Speeds are very slow. We have ambassadors out there. There will not be gates to my knowledge. 6 months ago, Lori Molina asked for a study to be done for putting gates at all the crossings. The construction department is looking at that, and they're reporting back to the board and to the board on that issue. That is not my. All I know, it will open without any gates, but RDS committed to put more ambassadors out there to help with the school children crossing at all the schools, not just the location.
I'll say this though, for those that don't understand, the rail line is what's known as street running. Street running means just like if you're a car, motorists are on the street, the rail line is on the street. They are both controlled by the same set of signals, but with certain intersections, there's signals that tell the cars not to make a left turn and warn the cars to stay back. And that's one of the issues in some cities. The drivers, especially I would say in Houston, which I believe you were at the other day, the drivers have a terrible problem about understanding that there's a rail line there, and they keep turning into, especially in the first year or two, they kept hitting the light rail vehicles. There was like 50-some accidents. Here, I think the line is laid out. I drove it the other day. I think the line is laid out in such a way that if you pay attention to the red lights and the signals, and there's sheriffs and other things around, that you'll start to learn. One of the things about the particular neighborhood is people like to run across the street, doesn't matter where. So the one enhancement is going to be fences, and then one of the board directors at the committee meetings a couple weeks ago saw these kind of like horse-type fences where you have a rail here and a rail here, and he thought, well, that would be more decorative. And this guy got up and he said, well, you know what? This is an issue about, it's not the children that are going to get in trouble. The history about accidents and all generally is not kids. Kids actually have this figured out. The problem is it's the drinkers, certain levels of adults, certain people that want to beat gates, beat trains, and do other things safety-wise. I said, what you need is, I don't even know if 4 feet is tall enough, but you do need fences where people are not going to try to squirt on through or anything like that. Even in the early days of the blue line, you'd see places in the fence where people would rip the vertical slot so they could use it as a shortcut. So in this particular case, having the fences in the middle of the tracks is a good safety issue. Unfortunately, perhaps wasn't thought of early on, but I think it's going to be an important safety enhancement for all concerned.
I don't want anybody to think that we haven't looked at the gates seriously. There's a very detailed study done on what would it take to put quad gates in all these locations. The truth of the matter is you have to take a lot of lanes of school traffic away. You would make Indiana, let's see, first and third street thinner, and it would be very difficult to do. So I know this is these are all there's a number of streets in the city and the county that are not protected, but there are curbs that a car has to get over to hit our track. I have to tell you, I actually feel very fortunate we haven't had any incident to date. But we are running normal service right now. So.
I was the original person who suggested 4 quad gates on the blue line. I believe in many cases that has made a big difference. But the problem, well, first of all, in the state of California, under the PUC rules, and this is the same in every state I know of, generally if you're under 35 miles an hour, you don't need gates, period, for light rail. And this ain't doing 35 on the street, we're 35. 4 quad gates are very difficult. You can get cars trapped. You have to exclude left turns. I'm a safety nut. I have a very hard time seeing too many intersections where that is going to be a positive contribution. But there's some things on that line, particularly that turn at third. If you are making a right turn from 3rd on Indiana. If you do not watch where you are, you can wind up stopping right on the track, and there's no place to go except being shoved into a wall. And that's my single biggest concern on that entire road. And the other thing is, in every other light rail line, you have the people who've been there for a while, and after a while they get used to it. And then you get the people who have never seen an intersection like that before. And you have to figure out a way to make them alert and know what they're getting into and take them out of trouble. That's the difficulty. And that one in particular is very, very strict.
No, it's actually kind of first in Alameda. Say the same thing will happen at first in Alameda, will it not?
That's another interesting. There's 3 intersections that seem to be interesting, and it's almost kind of reminds me of the PMRC or whatever the intersection is in South Pasadena, where they've got all the gates where the streets went at an angle. They close some of the streets. It might be, especially as you mentioned, Jack, at first in Alameda, and at those 2 other intersections where the train makes the right turn and the left turn or whatever, the S curve there, that maybe it needs some sort of gate coming down, because that was the place where some of your staff, your safety staff was there, and Kurt, the LA person, managed to stop in what we call the box. And so the proposal was to perhaps draw some lines on the ground or indicate it, but that might be this one area where that gate might make sense. Because Gloria went out and told everybody everything needs gates, and if the train is running parallel to you when the train is stopped or the train's going, you need gates to tell people that are, you got the red lights on. I don't know, there's a thing called over-engineering. If there are those 3 intersections, that maybe it might be a safer idea, knowing the craziness of our city. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know what your thoughts are. I don't know what Ruben's thoughts are. Maybe.
What do these gates look like?
Well, they're railroad crossing gates.
Oh, the arms?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about crossing gates and arms.
There's 2 kinds. There's the 2 quad gate, where here's the track,
Right.
comes down.
Right.
The 4 quad gate has those, and then has another set that comes down and prevents somebody from driving around.
Right, I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Now, I don't know how many people are aware that there's a video online. There's an Amtrak train that's got a camera on the front of the train. And you've got these 5 people that had another video shooting the actual crossing. And you can see an SUV parked at the crossing. The gate had gone down. Everything appeared to be working. And as you're seeing the train coming along, but then you see this SUV going along at 70 miles an hour. All of a sudden, it's a second SUV. He sees the first one that's stopped for the train. He goes around the SUV. He goes through the intersection, and then you see the train and the camera, and then the Amtrak people getting out because there wasn't a whole lot left. But it was in Illinois. I don't know if you saw that on YouTube. It's not glorious. It's not bloody. It's just showing how people. It doesn't matter how regulated you are, how much you tell them about rules. You have blinking gates, you have crossing guards, and 5 people died because the guy didn't want to stop, and he went around and Amtrak had the engine. It was kind of clear that the train, everybody was following rules except for the driver.
Question: Are any of these going to be elevated at all?
Yeah, there'll be segments of them that will be elevated.
So these problematic areas can't be elevated.
Not today. It's already done.
Is anything about the construction precluding in the future either elevating them or putting them underground?
First in Alameda, it might change with the regional connector. There's an underground that could change that whole configuration, which would actually be a good thing.
Because if it takes the ground out of the way, because the Little Tokyo neighborhood is expressing concerns about the blockage of the traffic, and if you're going to have a 3-way meet at that intersection, I think for railroad safety and throughput, you would want to separated from the vehicles. Plus the fact that the density, Gerard, who's going to be here pretty soon, and myself, we took a field study of the San Francisco last year. In San Francisco,